This is the Corner Cutter Podcast, a consistent weekly show all about speed cubing, and you're listening to episode 67. Let's roll the intro.
Hi, this is Daniel Goodman.
Dylan Wang from JPerm.
Ian Scheffler.
Shiva Mansur from India.
This is Alex from Z3 Cubing.
What's up, guys? This is Jaden McNeil from Australia, and you're listening to the Corner Cutter Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Corner Cutter Podcast. Podcasting since 2014 and cubing since 2015. I'm your host, Josh, and this is the most consistent speed cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. How was that new intro? I spent quite a bit of time putting that together and getting it all edited, all worked out, and I absolutely love it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and it is the actual new intro to the podcast, so I'm very excited about that. So anyway, coming up on today's episode is another CuberChats episode. Today, we're covering two very interesting topics and stuff that doesn't get talked about on podcasts much, or cubing podcasts. And the second topic doesn't get talked about much at all, even on YouTube. So I have Owen on to talk about setting up cubes. He gives some amazing tips and tricks. And Owen, he has been lubing and setting up cubes for quite a while now. He's learned a lot of his knowledge, not only from spending hours and hours testing and setting up cubes, but also from Chris Tran. He's talked to him multiple times, so Owen definitely knows what he is doing. And then the other guest we have on today is Cubing Bear. He came on to talk about how to be more friendly at competitions, how to meet new people, and especially if you're more on the shy side, how to overcome that fear you have of talking with people. And we dive deep into this topic, so it's two very interesting discussions today. And we'll jump right into that in just a second, but I wanted to let you guys know if you have any questions for me or just want to send in some feedback, you can email all that in to Josh at thecornercutterpodcast.com. And you can send in audio feedback as well. So if you want your voice on the show, we did get some audio feedback last week, and I will be playing that on one of the next episodes. So if you want to send in audio feedback, go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback, or just click on the contact page and you'll see the button right there. So now let's jump into my conversation with Owen and Cubing Bear. Hey guys, welcome to another CuberChats episode. Today we're talking about how to set up cubes, just giving some tips and tricks, and then also how to introduce yourself and meet other cubers at competitions. We got two people on today. First up is, he's coming back from another CuberChats episode. Owen, welcome back.
Thanks for welcoming me. So happy to be here.
And Cubing Bear, welcome to your first episode.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me and taking me in.
So, Owen, why don't we start out with your topic? Tips and tricks on how to set up cubes. I know this is your expertise, so could you get us right into that topic?
Setting up cubes, tips and tricks. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about in terms of like all this stuff is core setup. So people usually say like, oh, it only really matters in like GAN cubes where they have special tension systems, or in Square One, or in things like that. And I just want to let people know that that is only like half true. So in GAN cubes, there's so much more contact between the tension system and the centerpiece, and that therefore you need to really make sure that there's a smooth contact there, because otherwise you could A, damage your cube, or B, get like a really scratchy feel, neither of which you want. And square one, again, if you don't have that kind of smooth contact, then you're just going to end up destroying your square one. However, on other cubes, it is actually also still necessary. So right here, I have my Galaxy V2M. And if you look underneath the caps, if you take off the caps, you'll also once again see that there's quite a big spring. And have you ever noticed that on certain cubes, there's like giant springs?
I think I've seen that on my Mega Minx.
Yeah. Usually Mega Minxes and very more springy 3x3s have that. And the reason is because they just try to be like, they try to have more tensionability, and that is always great, except for when you like to have it a certain way, which pretty much all cubers do. So what you want to do in this case, and this is a trade secret, but not anymore, I guess, is so Angstrom Gravitas actually here, not on the spring, but like on the contact space, is completely like, is one of the best things you can do, because Angstrom Gravitas doesn't actually really wear out that easily, and it's just super helpful. Have you guys ever set up cubes before?
Yes.
I know, Josh, you set up clocks.
Yeah, that's pretty much my expertise. 3x3s, not. I don't like do too much actual setup. I like either DMN37 or Maru, and I'm basically good. I probably am missing quite a bit, but this is something that kind of stumps me setting up cubes. There's so many different types of lube, so many different like brands of lube.
Yeah.
Weights. It kind of confuses me, so I would love it if you could keep sharing these tips.
Yeah. What about you, Cubing Bear? You were about to say something.
Yeah, I do set up my cubes quite a bit. I set up my cubes a lot actually. Usually with my Ganner, my 7x7s or 4x4s. I guess I'll just talk about how my setup works. So like for example, I have the GAN 354, and what I do to set that up is first, after using it for a bit, I clean the whole puzzle. I make sure that it's dry, just so I can really work in there. And then since I already know that it's tension, right, what I would do is I would actually add a thick lube near the core, kind of like how you were talking about, just because I know that a lot of pieces move around in there. And then I would add lighter lube to the pieces. That way, when it combines together, it just creates a nice blend. Especially with the magnets, it just creates a nice blend with how it's set up properly.
Yeah, that's unbelievably awesome to hear, because that is exactly how lubricating and setup of puzzles is supposed to work. Is that it's not just about how the certain lubes are supposed to make the cube feel, it's about how they complement each other.
Yeah.
So some really good ones that you can use if you're listening here, or you guys, are so Lubical Speedy and like Weight 5. It's a really heavy lube, and the thinnest lube that the Cubicle has. They complement each other really well, actually, because it's kind of like it's a really strange mixture of the viscosities, because Lubical Speedy kind of coats to the outside of the Weight 5. And that way it kind of makes it like a more swooshy feeling. And putting that in corners and edges, you can do it for both or one or the other. It just makes a cube feel amazing. Yeah. Some other things that people could try are, and I'm talking about piece lube. My thing about core lube is done. Gravitas on the center. That's it. But yeah, some other things that people listening can try are just DNM. So DNM in Dignitas is the most notorious mixture of lubes out there right now. I probably and this is because Dignitas actually has a what's it called hydrophobic nature, meaning that it repels water because it is nonpolar and water is polar. So when you do this, you can something if you're watching at home and you didn't know this, take the a little Q-tip or the little thing that they send with Dignitas, takes them out and like put it on like a plate or something, and just put a drop of just normal water on it, and you'll see they don't. One of a few things is going to happen. So it's either going to run straight off the little bit of Dignitas, or the other thing that happens is that it doesn't make like a small puddle. It kind of just stays balled up in this little droplet. So that makes it so that when you have it like all together like that inside the cube, they just complement each other so well because it's really interesting because what happens is they don't want to be near each other. So they kind of push each other away, and this makes for more like a faster cube and a more and it helps the lube spread out much more, and it's actually really cool.
So it's sort of like two magnets with the north sides facing each other, and so they're repelling each other, so it's pretty smooth.
Correct.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ever go to competitions and you want to go up to people and say, how would you like it if I set up one of your cubes for you? Use these strategies, and you can actually get like people to pay you. I remember I met Sebastian Wire at a competition. Really cool guy, super nice. And I gave him my GAN 354M, which I had spent literally days working on setting up to make it so that it was perfect. And he immediately told me that he hated the cube and he didn't like 354s even before he started turning it. And I said, just try it, man. You might like this one. His first solve on it was a 4.7. Yeah. It's all about knowing how certain lubes cooperate with each other and how it works all in the tensions of the cube and in the plastics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Cubing Bear, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it was really. I just found it like super interesting, like just the way, the liquids mesh with each other. Before I was setting up, I was actually looking up how lubes actually work, and the relationship is kind of like oil and water. They don't mix together, but when they're inside the cube, it's like the thicker substance is surrounded by the thinner substance, and therefore, when they're turning, they just spit out individually like tiny little bubbles, like little tiny circles. And when that happens, they just flow easily together. They just work together that way. And I just found that really interesting. I don't know. I just sound like a nerd right now.
No, it's completely true. And it's really crazy to think about because there's so much going on in the cube on the inside that you just don't get to see.
Yeah.
Oh, and how long, like after you take all this time setting up a cube, how long does it take? Or how many solves do you need to do before the lube starts wearing off and you have to add more or reset up the cube?
So this is actually a really good question. So the first lube of the different lubes that I use that runs out after I put them all in and set up a cube is usually going to be, why am I forgetting the name?
DNM?
No, the DNM version 2, the Compound 5. So Compound 5 in my situation tends to run out after like usually about 120 solves. So it stays in there for a really long time, which is super nice. But once that happens, once it runs out, and you can definitely feel it when it's starting to run out, and then you can feel it when it's completely ran out. What I usually do is I just clean out the cube and just start from the beginning again. So, yeah.
Okay. What would you say is more important? Lubing the core or the pieces?
Completely depends.
Yeah.
So for certain cubes, so I'm gonna go through like the X-Men Volt Square 1 and the Chi Square 1, for example, both really good square ones. For those, if you don't lube the core, it's gonna break in like literally 100 solves. If you do lube the core, then it's gonna break in like 1,000,000 solves. So in some cases, it's more about just caring for it and making sure that it's working properly, rather than like making sure it feels good. But in other cubes, such as the Shadow M, one of my personal favorites right now, lubing the core doesn't really matter. It's got an unbelievably strong core that doesn't really tend to break or strip, and you don't get spring noise if you like set tensions nicely. So, but it comes kind of slow out of the box, so it's more important to lube the pieces in that situation.
Okay, cool. If someone is listening and they're just starting out, or they just want to get into lubing their own cubes besides buying like Cosmic or Labs cubes, what lubes would you recommend them get? Maybe recommend 2 or 3 that they can do all this with what you're talking about?
Wow, that's a good question. If you have a budget of like, let's say $15 for lubricants, I would recommend for you to get the Angstrom Gravitas and Dignitas, and probably some Lubical Speedy. So what you need to do to set up cubes with that is, as I said, Gravitas on the center, where the spring contacts the centerpiece. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put a very thin coat of Dignitas on the edge wings. I think that's is that what they're called, or harpoons or something like that?
Torpedoes,
thank you.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to want to put the cube back together, do a ton of solves, and then you're going to want to take apart just a few pieces and put some Lubical Speedy on the harpoons. You're going to want to put it back together, do some more solves, and then once that's done, you're going to want to take out the corners and take out your Gravitas again and put just a tiny bit on each of the corner stalks. Once you have that, you do a couple more solves, put some more Lubical Speedy in if it's not already fast enough, and then you've got an amazing cube. This can also be done with DNM or Lunar from a Speed Cube Shop. But in my experience, it works best with Speedy. I know it's weird because DNM is supposed to do the exact same thing except last longer, but I think Speedy actually, even though it doesn't last as long, it is a lot faster.
Okay. Would you recommend staying away from the lubes that are weighted right now, just because it can be a little confusing and you don't really need them when you're starting out?
Cubicle silicone weight 3, and then I don't really order very much weighted from Speed Cube Shop. But Speed Cube Shop, I think it's like weight 6 is their like middle of the line. Those are the ones you really want if you're looking to like slow down a cube. Otherwise, you shouldn't really get too involved with weighted lubes.
Mhm.
They're not super useful. They haven't been super useful since the introduction of Gravitas and Dignitas.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what you're talking about just a second ago with putting just a thin layer on one of the pieces, when do you know that you've overlubed a cube?
You should take a Q-tip or the brush that they provide in your order, if that's what you're using. And you should just take like 1 scoopful of lube, and that one for each torpedo is going to be plenty. If you use more than one, except for on like, I'm trying to think, but like, yeah, on 6x6 middle edge pieces, those sometimes will like to use, you should use 2 because they're just so much bigger and they have so many more pieces that they touch. But you should only use 1. Otherwise, it's going to overlube the cube and you're going to need to wipe out lube.
Now, I just want to give an example and you to run through what you would do to set up this cube. Just quickly, I know you covered a bunch of what you need to do in the specifics already, but I just want everybody listening to know exactly what they need to do in the steps. So if someone was to get a new MF3RS2 or 3M out of the box, could you run through what steps you would do to make the cube amazing? You don't have to go into all the detail, but just like breeze over the basic steps.
All right. So if you want to go, should I go as in depth as like I do, or like just anybody would do?
I'll do like
just
your technique, but
all
make
right.
it easy enough for everybody.
All right. So you're gonna want to get it's a few lubes so that you're gonna want to use. So Gravitas Dignitas. Let's see, MF3RS 3 and 2. Those are like faster cubes. So those are gonna want compound 5. And you're gonna want, just trying to think, DNM and Speedy probably, or maybe just Speedy.
Mhm.
Probably just
So,
Speedy.
When you first take it out of the box, first thing, do you want to work on the tensions or?
First, you want to do a bunch of solves. If you don't have the tensions broken in, then you're not doing any good for yourself, because then you're not just like actually making the best of what you have.
Mhm.
So and I don't mean like 1,000 solves, average of 1,000 on your new cube before you set it up. I mean, probably literally like 3 is going to be fine.
Do you want to wipe it out after that?
Yes, you're going to want to take it apart and wipe it out. So once you've wiped it out, you're going to want to take out all the springs and make sure that they are, you're going to want to unscrew the whole cube and take out all the springs and wipe out all the pieces. And something that I have done in the past that I wouldn't recommend for people under the age of 10 is sometimes I put the pieces, if they don't have like screws, if they're all plastic, I put them in boiling water so that if there's any lube that's like stuck anywhere, that I can just get it off, and then I cool it off, and then you just got a completely dry piece. It's a really weird technique. It sometimes works. You shouldn't always do it, but yeah. So the next thing you're gonna want to do after you've taken apart the whole cube is you're gonna want to take Gravitas, as I said, do the whole Gravitas center cap thing, and then once you do that, you're gonna want to take all your edges. So edges, Same exact thing with the little bit of Dignitas on the edges. Put it all back together, and then except the difference here is that before you go ahead and do some break-in solves on the Dignitas and then put in your Lubical Speedy, what you're going to want to do is, since you want it to just be fast, like right away, so that it's just easier to break in, is you're going to want to put in some some Compound 5. It's a really fast lubricant. It runs out kind of fast, but it's totally fine because you don't want it in for very long. So you do a bunch of solves on Compound 5 with the Compound 5, and then once it's all broken in and started to move fast, then you're going to want to put either your Lubical Speedy or your DNM back into the cube, do some more solves. You're going to have a great cube. Great time, great people, great smiles.
Nice.
Yeah. I just wanted to share my first lubing story. My first speed cube was the Dan Zanchi. And I was really new to speed cubing at this time, so I was doing all this reading, especially on the speed solving forums, what lube to get, how to lube it, all these sorts of things. So I eventually decided on Traxxas 50K, and that's it. So then I watched a video on YouTube exactly how to do it. I was being so careful. And finally, my cube came, the lube came, and so I watched the video step by step, did exactly what he did, put the lube exactly where he put it, and my cube turned out decent. It was pretty slow, which I didn't like that very much, but I thought I had done a pretty good job on my first lubing adventure. So Owen, is that basically all you wanted to share? Any other small hints or tips or advice that you want to give the listeners?
Yeah. One really big thing, which is that Lubical Black, I get this question. This is one of the most asked questions I've gotten. So first of all, do I like Lubical Black or Vortex better? And the answer is neither. I actually don't like using core-specific lubes because I feel like they're just unnecessary and expensive. Because with other lubes, like Gravitas especially, it works in the core, it works in the pieces. There's not really anywhere where it doesn't work except for the edges. And that's just so helpful because that works. It's just like one lube that you can just use literally anywhere you want. Silk, same thing. DNM, same thing. Speedy, not the same thing, but it's just so good in the pieces that I just love it. So it's still worth it. But Lubical Black is just, it does make your cubes a little bit faster. It just wears out way too fast. For me, in my experience, it wears out in about a day, and I just hate that so much. And Vortex is the same exact thing, except it's more watery, so that it wears out in a couple of months, which is a lot better. But still, it's slow, and it just doesn't work that great.
Oh, and where did you learn how to lube these cubes so well?
So a few answers, actually. So one answer is I learn a lot of stuff from the times that I've met the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Tran, and watching all his videos and chatting with him on a messenger and stuff. and he helped me out a lot. Another way is that so much like trial and error, so that you know exactly how much you need and exactly like what to do.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. So,
Thanks.
Cubing Bear, do you want to jump right into your topic?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, to me, I'm going to be talking about something that I don't really see a lot of videos about, and people don't really talk about a lot, and I can understand why, because it's a topic that is something that it's something that everybody deals with, but it's something that you don't really want to share publicly. I would say, and it's how to not be afraid of going to a competition and meeting new people and not having those butterflies in your stomach, that second thought in your head of saying, no, I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, so let's dive right into that subject. Is it just because a lot of people, cubers, are shy or maybe introverted?
I would say that it's kind of half and half of that. There are a fair share of people who are introverted in the cubing community, and there are people who aren't. And I would say that the reason that it seems that way is because when you go to a competition, there's that atmosphere, that tense atmosphere of the competition, and it's kind of overwhelmed by the social aspect at times. And like, I'll just go ahead and say my first experience when I was at a competition. When I first went to a competition, I remember I was there and I was looking at people like doing all their things, and I'm like, wow, this is just wow. Like, because you don't expect it. Like, when you go to a competition, your first thought, if you're a new person trying to go to a competition, your first expectation is that you have these people who are just, amped up and ready, kind of like in those cartoons where everybody's just looking like mean and everything. But then when you get there, it's kind of a lighter, more tense, a more lighter feeling thing. And one story that like really helps me like to explain my point of like, not being afraid is when it was before, I guess, Max got really popular. I'm talking about Max Park. And I really, really wanted to talk to him. And I was just really scared to talk to him just because like he was just so focused on cubing. Like, he was so focused on the 3x3. And he was just that kind of person that if you said hi to, he would just ignore you. He just looked that way. And I was there with my uncle, and I was just telling him that I don't think I should do it. But then I was thinking that if I don't do this now, I won't get any better at doing it. Like, if I don't do this right now, and I'll have another situation like this again, I won't know how to deal with it because the first time I didn't try. So just trying is something that you will feel better about it, and you have a chance that something could happen. So I went up to him really nervously, and he actually said hi to me, and I said hi to him back, and and we just had like a nice conversation, and it just blew my mind that just being there, giving it a try at least, was more better than me just staying away and just feeling quote unquote safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Social anxiety is something that everyone has, whether they think they have it or not, and just being able to control it and just know what you need to, how you need to be in order to kind of have that click with people. Even if you don't believe in yourself, trying is the best thing you can do.
Yeah. And if it comes down to that, there are some other tips that people can do. For example, if you're in a competition and you just get there and everybody's already centered there, my recommendation would be to look for people who are sitting alone. Just because if you were to go up to a group, everyone is staring at you as you're talking to them, and that's just going to create more anxiety. Whereas you have just one person and they just talk to you and they're just by themselves and you're by yourself and you're both looking for people to talk to, it just creates more of a connection. And then you can build up to talking to other people who in groups, because then you'll have that experience of talking to somebody already.
And the people sitting alone might feel the same way you do, and they're just looking, or they're a little shy to introduce themselves to everyone or to talk to someone else.
Yeah.
One thing that I do whenever I go to competitions that none of my friends are at is, and this is just such a huge thing that's so important for lots of people, is that to help, which will always help you out, is to know that you're a nerd, they're a nerd. They're gonna have trouble talking to people also. Not only because they're also a nerd, but also because they're human.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's a regulation in WCA that says only humans are allowed to compete. So I don't think that anyone who doesn't have any sort of social anxiety is going to be there, because it's all just humans. It's you and the world.
Yeah.
Cubing Bear, have you found any opportune times to introduce yourself to people? Like, I found when you're sitting next to somebody in the waiting area, or talking to your judge, that can be a great way to meet new people.
Yeah. So in a competition I went to like a couple of weeks ago, I was just what you were talking about. I was at the waiting. I was waiting at the waiting area, like where we're all waiting to get called our names for the competition. And then I was just really nervous. And then I see the guy next to me, and he just has like the same tense feeling as I do. So I just I just thought like this, I could ask him a couple of things just to like break the ice. And some icebreakers to start up conversations that I have are like, how's your main? Well, what are your goals for this competition? How are you doing? Like you could also start off with like beautiful day today. I know it sounds weird, but these are things that get people to get away from the nervousness and just actually just talk to you, because deep down we all know that we're here because we love the same thing, and that's cubing. We all love cubing, and that's why we're here in the first place. We're not here, especially for people who aren't fast like me. I'm not fast, and I don't expect to win. I'm there just to like hang out, have a good time, and I'm sure that a large number, like 90% of people there, are also there to have fun, because like there's like a 10% that actually has a chance of winning, that they're really going to go and dive in to win that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, I've used a lot of those icebreaker questions as well, and they do work. And if you get somebody that doesn't really want to talk or doesn't say much, don't worry. Just try it again, and you'll find somebody who you can talk to. Cubing Bear, once you go to a few competitions and you start to know some people, what are some gateways you've found to keep meeting new people and not just talking to your same circle of friends?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And one of the things that I actually do is when I see people who I know, I wave to them. And what I actually do sometimes is if I know people well enough, I'll be like, hey, how about let's go to a different table. Like all of us will all just like grab our things and go to a table like with a couple of kids, and we'll say hi to them and everything, and just like surrounding other people in an environment with like, when you have like a group of friends and you surround them, they get more comfortable, and it's just kind of like just spreading yourself out there. So like what we did is, we were like in the one end of the room, and by the end of the competition, we were just all in just one big table, all of us just like sitting there, and kind of slowly going at it, slowly talking to other people, like getting your friends and getting them on board, like just to like go out there and talk to people, because we're social animals, and as humans, and we respond well to social peer pressure, or not really peer pressure, but the same effect as peer pressure, where if you see a group of people doing something, you will want to go into because you want to fit in, and like you see that as an opportunity to socialize, and that actually works to socialize with people and like get them to really talk to you, and being able to make friends and all that stuff and all that awesome stuff that you can do at a competition. And it works really well. And I've tried it before, and I managed to make good friends and meet new people. And it just makes the whole experience at a competition way better than just sitting by yourself, waiting for yourself to get called, and just going home at the end of the day going like, wow, that was a mediocre experience.
Mm-hmm. Owen, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I mean, I think it's totally perfect, and I think that it's totally perfect to and totally true to say that, we try to be social, and it's always just the best to be social. Even though it can be hard, even though it can seem impossible, being social is the most important thing in life sometimes.
Yeah. And it's something that you really learn that when you see other people talking, like you don't ever see, and the evidence is kind of like on YouTube as well. Like when we see other cubers, you don't really see a video of like, oh my God, you guys, I had the worst experience at a competition. No one would talk to me. Nobody ever says that because it's not true. Those are just, we think of like the most, in our minds, our mind is kind of like our worst enemy because in our mind, we think of like the most extreme cases of like, no one's going to talk to you. Everyone's just going to be like there. What if this goes wrong? What if that happens? Because really your mind is what's stopping you from being able to socialize with people. And it's just breaking that down and just being more calming down, taking a step back and being like, okay, I'm going to talk to this guy and hopefully he'll talk to me. There's a chance because what I like to think of is that there is no 100% chance of anything happening. It's always 99% because there's always that 1% that something could happen. And because of that, like, even if it looks like no one's going to talk to you, it's like, oh, this is 100%. It's not 100%. It's 99%. There's that 1% chance you have that hope. You have that small hope, but it's still hope that something great is going to happen of it. And that's just, you just got to keep a positive outlook on how you talk to people and how to actually make friends in the community itself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Any tips? I'm just trying to think of any other situations that people might be in or any other questions. I guess one would be any tips for like introducing yourself to queuing celebrities or people that are more famous and you might be a little intimidated to say hi.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. That's one of the more harder ones. I know right now if I were in front of like, Felix or all those people, I would definitely be really nervous and be like, oh my God. But yeah, it's just like how I was saying before. One tip that I would have is just would be to go up to them and just be, you like, let's say it's like Felix and just be like, hey, Felix, how are you doing today? And he would just like, oh, I'm pretty good. Obviously there's a crowd around him and there's other people there too, but, you could go ahead and, pull them during the break time. I know that's what I did with Max. I actually, while he was like at lunch, like I was actually there talking to him, like, trying to find them the more secure space and just being able to talk with them. But if like you're in a group of people, like just be in the group, just say hi to them, cheer for them when they go up in competitions, cheer for them. Like you really feel like you're with them with the solve when you're up there with them, cheering for them in the same group because, they're appreciating your every route. And another way that I would another tip that I have is like, for those who want to practice and socialize at the same time, it would be to actually go ahead and race people. So you would just go up to them and say, hey, you want to race? It not only creates that, it enlightens your competitive aspect, but it also helps you practice because you want to try to beat the other person. And, that just makes you more motivated to do things. And, after the solve is done, you have fun. You're like, oh man, I almost beat you. And like, yeah, let's go again. And it just creates a nice environment for you to be able to have that competitive aspect.
Hey, I absolutely love that idea. I'm definitely going to try it at the next competition. And it doesn't, you can just walk up to somebody and ask that. It's definitely, just bring your stack mat and cube and you're ready. That's a great
totally.
I also think that a lot of other times when you're at a competition and you're actually like, sometimes there are like mats or times, places where like, you get to try cubes. Some of the store sponsored places, they have like a table and like you get to try out cubes and everything.
Yeah.
Another good way to socialize there is to, if they're like solving a cube, like testing out a cube, you can ask them, hey, what does that feel like? Or you're planning on getting that? And like, I hear it's good. Do you think it's good? Just asking those questions of like, trivia on cubes and other stuff like really brings out the inner nerd in them because they're just gonna start blabbling on just like, yeah, I feel like the this loop is really good. I've tried it on my blank blank blank, talking about cubes, and you really start a conversation. It's like those moments that enlighten you to want to talk about something that you're really passionate about. That's what's really going to get them to start a conversation with you and socializing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts from either of you or tips on anything regarding this topic before we start wrapping it up?
I guess the last one I would say is for those who do YouTube and cubing, I know like it's an extra challenge because then you have a camera in front of you and you just look even more awkward when there are people there and you like want to record something. I guess my advice to those who are vlogging at like a cube competition is, just go up to the people that are like in the background, or like you're next to somebody and they're like, hey bro, you want to be in my video, and everything. And that just gets people like, oh man, that's sick. Like you're a YouTuber and everything, because I know there are a lot of small YouTuber channels and cubers and all that stuff. And, having a camera, it just creates a kind of like it just makes you feel like you look more like, oh my God, this guy, he's kind of a little bit more professional. Like, he's more friendly, because if you're like a vlogger, then you got to be more social with people. And that kind of brings people in closer to you because they know like they'll talk to you. So it just, for those who have like, those who want to record or something, don't be afraid to record. Just be yourself. And that's really all you got to be, is you got to be yourself, because that's the way you're going to be happy. Don't pretend to be someone that you're not, because at the end of the day, they're not. If you make friends with somebody and you pretend to be somebody, they're going to expect that out of you for the rest of the entire time you hang out with them. Just be yourself and people will come to you. That's probably my last final advice for that.
Totally agree. Applause to that.
Cubing Bear, thank you so much for sharing these tips and for bringing this topic up for this CuberChats episode. It's just, this topic is so interesting, and I don't think it gets talked about enough.
Yeah, definitely. This whole topic it's been like weeks of research. Like I have like this little notebook right now in front of me that I just wrote down like little observations I make sometimes. I don't know if people want to do this. I guess this is a bonus tip. I don't know, but like I sometimes go to competitions and like I notice these things. Like I notice people who don't talk to each other. I just wonder like what are they doing, and comparing it to writing down like what are these guys doing who are in a group table, and like what are they doing that it makes them so successful in socializing with people. And I just combine all that and write down my ideas and observations on these things.
That's cool. Yeah, that's super interesting. Owen, where can people follow you and find your stuff on the internet?
So you can go to my YouTube channel. I don't have much up there yet. I am working hard to make sure that I can get more stuff out there, but it's Owen the Cuber. The picture is a picture of a 5x5 that's in a heart pattern.
Okay.
I'm something.
Subscribe to me.
Okay, I'll definitely have the links in the show notes. Cubing Bear, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube as well. It's called the Cubing Bear, and I guess the logo is it's kind of a dark bluish background, like with a white hexagon in the middle with a bear. And I do a lot of cubing videos and tutorials and everything. And that's where you guys can find me.
Perfect. I'll definitely link to yours as well. Thank you guys both for taking the time today to come on the Corner Cutter podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Wow, that was an interesting discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. As always, I will have links to all the things we mentioned, all the lubes we mentioned, all the YouTube channels and where you can follow them in the show notes, thecornercutterpodcast.com/show notes, and everything will be right there. If you want to be part of the Corner Cutter podcast, you definitely have a chance of coming on. All you gotta do is go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/guest and fill out the guest form, and there's a high chance I will invite you on the show. So just be thorough in filling out all the information, and maybe you'll be on one of the next episodes. If you're looking to make a magnetic clock, I'm selling the magnets. Just go to the cornercutterpodcast.com/clock magnets, and you can buy them right there. It's a really nice deal. Next week's episode will either be an interview with Laser Monkey or just a regular solo show with me doing cubing news, reading all you guys' feedback and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure. Guess it depends on how much time I have to do the show, because I am taking some college classes now, so I'm not going to have as much time as I used to for the podcast, so we'll see about that. So make sure to come back next week for that. And, oh yeah, one other thing, go Patriots! They had an awesome game last Sunday, 37-31, and that was super fun to watch, especially overtime. Or the final drive and then overtime. So they're going back to the Super Bowl again. Yeah, that's awesome. But that's it for this week's episode. Let's take episode 67 back to the scrambling table, and I'll talk with you guys again next week in episode 68 of the Corner Cutter Podcast. Special thanks to DG Cubes, J Perm, Ian Scheffler, Shivam Bansal, Z3 Cubing, and Jaden McNeil for that awesome intro. I really appreciate it.